Let's go Knights! Hi, and welcome to Knight Spotlight. We have amazingly talented faculty and staff all around us at Northern Essex Community College. They're out there teaching and researching and preparing students for careers in a world that is constantly changing. Each and every one of them has something interesting and important to share. And today, we are in the early childhood education classroom on the Haverhill campus with Professor Deirdre Budzyna, who is the coordinator of our early childhood education program. Professor Budzyna, Deirdre,
yes,
I'll call you Deirdre, is a nationally recognized expert in early childhood education. She's the author of a book, The Whole Child, Early Childhood Development. And she, under her leadership, our Northern Essex Community College Early Childhood Education Program became the first in the country to offer an associate degree using competency-based education. And we have one more thing in common, Deirdre and I. She has a theater background and actively works in the theater. She runs Acting Out Productions, a youth theater company in Newburyport, and she directs plays and musicals for the Firehouse Theater and lots of other places, and is just a wonderfully exuberant performing arts professional too. So Deirdre, it's so good to have you. Thank you so much for being here and being on Knight Spotlight.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
I have an easy question for you to start off with.
Okay.
Why is childhood education important, Deirdre?
Well, that is an easy question to answer. So I feel like, one of the things that drew me to education, so I do have a theater major, but I also have an education major. And, I feel like it is so crucial that from a young age, children understand how exciting learning is, right? So if when you're 3, you love learning, then you're likely to love learning when you're 5 or when you're 10 or when you're 15. And so I feel like it starts so young, and a lot of times people don't recognize the development that's going on from birth to age 5 and how truly important that is for setting the stage for the rest of their education.
Sure. The importance and the challenges that we face with early childhood education and care in the state are front and center, right? What are some of the challenges that Massachusetts as a state faces with its system of early childhood education and care?
So, I think coming out of COVID, certainly we saw the importance of having children in quality early childhood programs, as you mentioned, for educational reasons, but equally important for social reasons. So children were at home, often with great parents, great grandparents, in supportive situations, but it's not the same as being in a classroom with 10 or 15 other children and learning how you share, give and take. I remember, the first time I saw my niece after COVID, she was 5 years old, and she had basically for all of her young life been home with her parents and grandparents. And she said to my youngest daughter, in my whole life, I've never lost a game. And my youngest daughter said, today's the day, right? But I think,
I know your youngest daughter, I can hear her saying.
Yes, absolutely. But I think, that is an important skill, right? Learning how to lose, learning how to share, learning how to listen to other people who aren't your parents. And I think a lot of that, we saw how important that is coming out of COVID. I think, funding is always a huge issue. I think it is hard to retain really strong early childhood educators. And so I think being able to not just advocate for quality programs, but also for quality wages for students to be able to go into a field where they can support themselves, and also the importance of play and the importance of the arts and the importance of socialization. So we're not only teaching reading, right? And I'm not saying teaching reading is very important, but we're teaching all of those skills.
For people who haven't had the opportunity to come into the early childhood education classroom on our campus, it's a fascinating place. I walked in and the first thing I saw was the loose parts room and all the stuff laying around. I wanted to dive in and play right away. Can you tell us a little bit more about the economics of this? I mean, you mentioned about how much the pay might be in a field like this and the problem of retention and keeping people in the field. Tell us a little bit more about that. In Massachusetts particularly, right? How dire is that?
I think it's pretty dire, actually. I have former students who are now directors of centers. I have former students who are now teaching in centers. And I think, what is happening is many students will start, they'll work at a center, and then they will move to another center because they can make $2 more an hour. And, the the truth is, if you're 25 years old and you're trying to pay rent, the cost of living in Mass is very high. You take what you need to take to support yourself. But so I think that centers are also struggling to find a balance to pay their teachers well, but also to provide, appropriate activities and to have a safe space. I don't think it is definitely very challenging, especially for private centers. We have a lot of students who have their own home childcare centers to provide programming that's quality and also be able to make a livable wage.
What is our early childhood education program doing to help with some of those challenges?
So I think one piece that often our students come to campus and don't feel like they are a part of is advocacy. And we talk a lot about how you as an early childhood student being a voice for what you want is really important. And I think it's easy to feel like, especially in Massachusetts, where we feel like there is support for education and, we have a governor who's very much in support. But, I talk a lot about in your cities and your towns, know what school committees are doing, know what individual elementary schools are doing, know what's happening, because sometimes that is a place where you can actually have a strong impact. I think it's easy to feel like, what does one vote matter? And in education, I think having a strong voice is really, really important. I think a lot of what's coming back with nature-based curriculum, with play-based curriculum, with arts-based curriculum is because there are people in this area who have spoken strongly and said, we need to think about how we're working with children, and they've really advocated for that. And so I want our students to feel like, yes, they are learners, but also they can go out and take what they've learned and advocate for the field as well.
How does something like this competency-based approach to our degree programs factor in? How does that benefit a student in terms of getting into the field and some of the forces that have been challenging in the field?
So I think competency-based for the right student is a perfect fit, right? So some of it is about finding rightness of fit. But I'll share an example. We had a student, she was somebody who had come back to the field of early childhood. She had been a business student. She was working full-time. She was highly motivated, but she didn't have a lot of time, 9 to 5 to come to campus. Now, there are some students who come to campus and they get this, right? Which is great. But she really wanted to get a director's certificate in early childhood education, and competency-based education allowed her to work at her own pace, to set her own goals, to demonstrate what she knew, which was a lot. So one of the great things about competency-based education is if you get to a module and you know a lot, you can demonstrate that you know it and move on, right? So I think we had a very strong director's program. I believe we have 12 students this summer alone who are graduating with their CVE director's certificate, which is super exciting. We haven't seen that kind of summer graduation rate, and I think that is directly connected to the CBE program.
It'll do a lot of good for the state. We need a lot more of those students.
And I think we also have, home childcare providers who both during COVID and now are working with, in many cases, underserved populations, and there's no way that they can leave their home childcare centers. But a CBE course where they're able to work in the evenings or on the weekend or while children are sleeping, connect with one of their professors, really allows students who it may not have been possible for them to get a degree.
If people want to know more, if they want to explore further, whether it's policy, our curriculum, learn more about the field of early childhood education, where would you direct them? What should they do?
Yeah, so I would say definitely reach out to me or reach out. What I love about our department is we have 2 people working on our EC grant who are fantastic, Doris and Charlene. We have a dean, Jody Carson, who is very, very supportive of education. And we have a lot of adjunct faculty who are also, have worked in the field, are currently working in the field, know a lot about what is going on. We have a strong advisory board. I think students feel when they come here is really any time of day, there is somebody who is responsive to them.
I've been at the college now for, it'll be 20 years, a couple of years from now, a long time. And our early childhood education program has always had their reputation. And you've been a huge part of that. Thank you for that. It is definitely an inviting place, and people feel very comfortable approaching any of the people you just mentioned And that's really important for our students, for our community, and for everybody. So thank you for that. And thank you for your leadership on so many important ways of helping with the very real challenges the state's facing. And thank you for joining us for Night Spotlight. It's been wonderful talking to our friend here, Professor Budzyna. Deirdre, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity.